First of all, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for tuning into this show, because what we're going to do is we're going to look at a game in which Arsenal lost 3-1 to Liverpool. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at it positively, because quite frankly, what I've seen tonight on social media is an utter moronic meltdown from quite a lot of people in a game in which there was a lot of positives to take if you actually did look for them. So thank you for tuning into this show. And what I would suggest is, if you want to give people the airtime of negativity, you can go and do that. But we're not going to do that here tonight. So sit back and enjoy the show and get involved in the live chat positively if you can. Let's crack on. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, a show in which we react to the latest Arsenal news and, of course, matches. And Arsenal have just finished their game, losing 3-1 at Anfield against Liverpool sides that are, of course, the champions of England. Now, as you saw from that intro, I am not interested this game talking about it in a negative way, criticising this person, criticising that person. Because it's not going to happen. Because what I saw today was a loss, but was progress. Arsenal have gone up to Liverpool several times in the last half decade, even longer than that. Last 8 years, we've failed, I think, to win at Anfield. And in all of those games, I saw so many few good things to take from those games. I saw surrender in those games. I saw disorganisation. I saw a lack of fight, a lack of desire, a lack of drive in a lot of those games. And you know what I saw tonight? I saw a team that were more organised. I saw a team that were outclassed. I saw a team that were coming up against a Liverpool side that were, quite simply, better than us. And I saw an Arsenal side that still did fight throughout the game. We made mistakes. There were errors, and there were plenty of them. But we made a lot more of an effort in this game against Liverpool than what you will have seen for a long, long time as Arsenal fans of a Liverpool team playing at home against Arsenal. The amount of times that we've gone up to these sides and been hit for 3, 4, 5 and been out of the game before the last 30 minutes, sometimes even more than that, and been out the game before it reaches the half-time whistle. And what you saw today from this Arsenal team was progress, was improvement. This Arteta side is not going to be a team that suddenly wins the league. And if you watch the preview show, a lot of people in the chat box, myself included, were predicting positive results, results that were good, that we actually had hoped that Arsenal could go to this game with a little bit more confidence than we usually do. Because that's the situation that we're in now as Arsenal fans, is that we've got hope, is that we've got a situation in this club where we can battle in these games, we can compete, we can go 1-0 up in these games, we can score against these teams, we can create big chances. And it's going to take time before we are on the same level as Liverpool. But it's important to remember that we aren't right now. We are not on the same level as Liverpool. They are a much, much bigger club. Now, there's an argument that suggests that Arsenal should have played this game differently. Arsenal should have played this game like Leeds approached this, who I may remind you lost 4-3, conceding, as I've already mentioned, 4 goals. They scored 3, granted. But they were never ahead in the game. And they lost the game. And they're a team like Leeds that have been promoted and have nothing to lose going up to Anfield. And you have an Arsenal side here that have got positive results against Liverpool in the Community Shield. And, of course, in the league at the end of last season, be it what it was, whether it was they'd won the league at that point already or not. But we got positive results. And not only that, but playing in the same sort of way we played against Manchester City and against Chelsea, where we were on the back, we hit teams on the break, and we tried to create chances in the opposition's half as much as we could. Because we know that ultimately, individually, on paper, these teams are better than us. And it's going to take a lot more than just simply going at a side to try and get a result. And Arsenal didn't do that today. And Arsenal ultimately made a lot of mistakes. Hector Bellerin made quite a few. Making 2 foul throws in a game, yeah, you just can't do that. Pepe, for instance, when he came on, shouldn't be on corners. That is something that we need to learn from and that we need to improve on. And I think that I saw a tweet from Mems that summed it up quite well, is that the basics still need work. Throw-ins, corners, still need work. And we understand that. But if you can't take positives from what you saw today, I don't know where you're going to find any positivity from what you're going to see throughout the season. What I did see from an Arsenal side is an Arsenal team lacking in someone to beat the press. someone that would enable us to break out. I think there was a key reason why Mikel Arteta took off Granit Xhaka and brought on Dani Ceballos, because Ceballos is the only person for us that can take the ball out from the back. And I think that's important to highlight because we lack someone that can drive the ball up the pitch. So the next time that someone wants to speak to me about how important Houssem Aouar is to the Arsenal side, I've got all the time in the world to listen to you. But you've got to understand that in these games, in these important fixtures, that a player like Thomas Partey, which I feel that there isn't a player like anywhere else to the same level, will enable Arsenal to compete in these games and escape from high presses in these games so much better than what you see from what we currently have on the books. You'll see someone be able to take the ball to the opposition. And we lacked that today. We really did. You look how isolated Aubameyang was all the game. You look how isolated Lacazette was, and the few chances that he got, he could have done better. Let's go into the live chat and see what you guys are saying. Derek Williams says, our right-hand side was bad. Rob and Hector need replacing. Now, what I'll say is I think that Rob Holding made a couple of mistakes. And I think you're mad if you can't see those errors. But what I will say is that there are a lot of times that the Englishman did pretty well. That he competed up against Sadio Mane, who is arguably the best left winger in the league, and went toe for toe for him a couple of times, more than a couple of times. He's going to make mistakes. Rob Holding is not the best. And I completely understand, Derek, why you think he needs replacing. And I was surprised to actually see Gabriel not start this game, if I'm honest. We're talking about Hector. Hector Bellerin had a bad game. 100%. Had a really, really poor game today. Making 2 foul throws is nearly unforgivable at times. But if you look at what he's done so far this season, Hector Bellerin has been so far off our worst player. And this was a bad game, and it highlighted a lot of the errors in his game. And I think we kind of lost discipline in some areas of the pitch, especially when Bellerin was on the ball. And I'm hoping that Arteta can address that. And maybe we'll see a change of formation with a different right back in the future. But right now, that's not what we necessarily need to focus on from today. Thank you for the donation. I believe it's Blue Whale. Thank you, mate. Let me just find your comment. There we go. I don't care if this is too soon, but getting rid of Martinez will haunt us. Now, I tweeted out that Bernd Leno, for that first goal in which it conceded, I thought he flapped it slightly. I thought he could have pushed that ball out a lot further. But I thought also Leno pulled off some decent saves in the game. There was a close-range shot from Mane that he saved really, really well that completely got forgotten about as soon as the mistake for the goal came along. Of course it did. And of course, after 2 weeks of Emi Martinez being at Aston Villa, saving a penalty and pulling off a really nice save at the end of the game to push it onto the bar, you're going to see highlights. But again, I'm just going to bring up the fact that we're playing Liverpool. And some people just can't seem to quite bring that into the argument at times. We need to think about that fact, is that we're coming up against a team that we're not on the same level as them. And you can't think of Arsenal as a team that are on the same level as them. Can you think of Arsenal as a team that could compete with them? To a degree, yes. Are we a team that can beat them? Yes, because we have done. But the thing is to do it on a consistent basis at this stage is going to happen. And you have to admit that first half from Liverpool was insane. Absolutely insane. They played some of the best football I've seen from a Premier League side this season. And it's unfortunate it came against us, but it did. And we still only conceded 1 goal. We still only conceded the 2 goals. And then into the second half, we managed to keep them at bay to the point where we were still in the game towards the end of the match. So I think that is also something that's important to highlight. Aaron B says, changing Xhaka was key to us not getting spanked today. We changed when he went off, which highlighted our midfield frailty. And I think that's a good point to point out. I mean, if those that watch the show know that I love to back Granit Xhaka all day long. I really like the guy. I think he's a fantastic midfielder. I think he really helps us dominate games and we have more of the possession. In games like this, Granit Xhaka isn't going to really win you these games. Granit Xhaka is really good when we've got more possession of the ball. When we're like really up against it like we were today, Granit Xhaka isn't the best, but he's the best that we've got for this team against that. There isn't anyone else in the midfield that can play instead of him in these big games at the moment. Until we sign someone like Thomas Partey, we have to play Xhaka. We can't not play Xhaka. El Neni had a decent game, and I think there's a reason why he was left on over Xhaka, because I thought Xhaka struggled a lot. But I don't think you can turn around and say that Xhaka was terrible. I think that this game highlights the errors in Xhaka's game. And I think that if you have a player like a Partey, again, next to Granit Xhaka in these games, I think Granit Xhaka would cope a lot better. But when the emphasis is on the Swiss midfielder to be the main guy to defend us against Sadio, against Salah, and against Firmino and Wijnaldum and Keita, he's going to struggle. Against Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, he's going to struggle because he's meant to be the main guy in the midfield for us, and that's not fair on him to be the main guy for Arsenal. He needs more support. He needs further backing. To have El Neni as his partner, whilst I like El Neni, is not fair, really. It's not fair when you're looking at what's coming at you and you're looking to your right and it's Mohamed El Neni, and I have all the liking in the world for him, but he's not top quality, is he? He's a solid, decent midfielder. The Dud had a really good game against Fulham, and I thought and a really good game against Leicester's B team as well. But I don't think we can turn around and say that Granit Xhaka is the reason that we lost this game. If anything, the reason why we lost this game is because we haven't got the player that we need in the midfield with Granit Xhaka, which I'll still point out again is Thomas Partey. I think if you have Thomas Partey in this game, things change a lot. Things change a lot. I'm not saying we win it, but I'm saying that we are a lot better equipped to tackle this game with him in the side. And that's why I'm really struggling to try and get my mindset around Arsenal of not going for Partey over Aouar. If we get both, it would be a dream come true. But if we've got £45 million to go and get Aouar, I'd rather we had £45 million to go and get Partey. So when it comes to these games, because I think it's something like, is it 27 games against the notorious Big Six that we haven't yet won a game away from home? If you put Aouar into this game, do Arsenal did they get any better? I mean, if you're going to put Aouar into this game, first of all, you have to change formation, because the position that Aouar plays in centre midfield, he's not going to play in a 2, is he? You can't put Aouar in a 2 with Granit Xhaka or El Neni and expect us to not be opened up all the time. It's not going to happen. So if you're going to play Aouar in this team against Liverpool, then we have to switch to a back 4. And if we switch to a back 4, we're going to get cut open a lot more. When they get past the fullback, there's only 2 centre-backs in the box to cover us rather than the 3. So this is the type of game where I think it really goes to show that why Arsenal's priorities should be more towards the Ghanaian than the Frenchman. Because these are the games where we need a Partey. Going away to Manchester United, to Liverpool, to Chelsea, to Man City, to Spurs, we need a Partey. That's where we're dropping points. We're dropping minimum 15 points a season away to the big teams. And that's 15 points that when you look at what we need to get into the top 4, a fraction of those points really helps us. And if by bringing in someone that enables us to compete in those games, gets us more points in those fixtures, that needs to be the priority. Arsenal can beat your Fulhams, your West Hams. They can beat your Brightons now and again. They can beat these teams. They can. But we cannot categorically right now beat Liverpool. We cannot beat Man City. We can't beat Chelsea. We can't beat United. We can't beat Spurs away from home. We just can't. And that's why Arsenal need to prioritise players which enable us to do that. I'm a bit gutted that this Liverpool game came so early on in the season. Had we maybe made 1 or 2 signings before the end of this window and then played a Liverpool side after they'd integrated, I would have liked to see how we stacked up. It'll be interesting to see, depending on who we sign, how we compete against a side like Liverpool towards the end of the season. But it just frustrates me. It's these types of games that I wish Arsenal really went into the market and prioritised players that would enable us to compete. Because even buying Aubameyang does not enable Arsenal to be better in these games. Buying Aubameyang enables you to guarantee your goals across the season, but he can score away from home against Manchester United, like he has done, and we've not won. He can score away from home against Spurs sometimes. I don't think he even has. But he can score away from home against big teams because he's done that. But we still haven't won the games because the players that we need to buy to win these games are not currently being bought. And that's what I'll always question. And I will question whether Houssem Aouar is a player that is going to enable us to win these games. Because I don't think he is. I really, really don't. We had a member sign up, which I was very thankful for. Let me just throw that up on the screen for you. Who was our new member? It was Dario G. Thank you ever so much for signing up, mate. We've got some exclusive content. Whilst I'm sitting here and criticising the possible signing of Aouar, we have got Adam White from Get French Football News coming on Tuesday for our expert members, and they'll be getting that exclusive content to get all the latest on the French midfielder. We had a couple more donations today as well. Thank you, Victor Edwards. Much appreciate the donation. While we lost Lacazette over Xhaka, the agenda is unreal. Lacazette missed a huge chance today, and I would quite like to see Eddie Nketiah give him more of a run now. I really, really would. Derek Williams says, I don't think our midfield was the problem. They were the most dangerous thing coming down the right flank and not down the middle. Can't blame Xhaka for this one. The problem is, Derek, I understand what you're saying, and the way that they attacked us was down our wide areas. But the thing is that if we had a midfield that could compete, we would be able to get out of their high press much easier. That's why getting in a midfield that can compete in these games is so important. Because yes, we're still vulnerable down the way, and no one is not going to be vulnerable against Mane, against Salah, against Trent, against Robertson. Those guys are always, you don't buy players to come up against Liverpool so that you never get attacked, because that's impossible. You can't go into these games and think you're going to somehow block out guys for 90 minutes. It's not going to happen. You buy players to enable you to compete in these fixtures. And that's what Arsenal need to do. We aren't buying players to stop opposition attacking us. We're buying players to enable us to compete for longer periods and keep us in the game to the point where we can start to turn around results. That's what we need to do. Kevin Azu, thank you ever so much for the donation, mate. Really appreciate that. Alex McCarthy says, unbeaten at home, champions, best attacking players, end of. We were just not clinical. No negatives tonight. Liverpool were brilliant. Glad to get the hardest away game over with. Let's move forward. And I think what's really good is that we can look at this weekend and we see that Chelsea have dropped points, Spurs have dropped points, Manchester United got very lucky to win their points, Manchester City have dropped points. You're looking at this loss and Arsenal are still above some and most of their main rivals, which is great. And Arsenal are now got a really tough run of fixtures, granted. We've got to play some really tough games in these next few weeks. We've got to go up to Liverpool again in the Cup. I expect massive rotation from both sides. And that, for me, that fixture is what it is. Like, whatever comes out of that game, if we lose that game 5-0 against Liverpool because of rotation, it's a really unfortunate time to play them. I don't think you would be amiss to overanalyze whatever the result is on Thursday. I think that's important to do, is that if Arsenal get stuffed, I don't think that you can overanalyze that at all, because it's a really unfortunate timing of a fixture and there's going to be lots of rotation. We've come off the back of losing. They're on a high from winning as well. There's the mental side of it too. I would love us to compete in that game. I think it's going to be a really interesting fixture, to be honest, to see tactically how both teams approach it. But I'm not taking too much from that game. It's more important to look at the league fixtures of what we got ahead of us and to prioritise those and getting wins in those games. But I love, Alex, that you've pointed out to us that we've got the most difficult away fixture of our season, because let's face it, we never get results at Anfield. We just don't. We just don't get results there because they're on a different plane to us. We did keep, I maintain this, that we stayed in the game for a lot longer than we ever usually do in that game. And I saw progress. I really genuinely did. Calvin Cloet says, I keep wanting to point out the negatives, but I need to remind myself that we were playing a far superior team. We are just not good enough yet. Calvin, thank you ever so much for putting that comment in, because that sums up, I think, the mentality of a lot of people. And I think what you've done there, Calvin, is actually you've turned around and gone, fair play. They're a better team than us. And we need to try and move past this consistent need to criticise our players when actually sometimes they are just outdone, outwitted, outplayed by a better side. Mistakes are going to be made. Teams are very good. Players are very good to try and bring mistakes out of those players. I think that's really important to point out as well. Victor Edwards says, today showed how much we need to play to break the press. And I agree with you completely. And we need to sign players, as I've pointed out too, to break the press. Pramod says, Saliba is going to struggle with our current right-back situation. And I think there's areas of the pitch that we certainly need to look at improving. I'm not saying that we don't. I think that Bellerin is someone that maybe you could look at in the future and say that Arsenal could effectively look to maybe replace him with something better. And Pramod goes on to say that, I know I'm not going to moan about this, but can't help feeling we have sold our best keeper. First goal and some actions really put doubts on the goalkeeper. I agree with you. I think that there are elements to this where you can look at and go, Emi Martinez was a good goalkeeper, a really, really good goalkeeper. And I think Villa have got a fantastic deal for the guy. But still, Leno is a really good keeper, a really good keeper. And because he's in the spotlight and he's conceded and maybe he's flapped at the first one, he certainly has flapped for the first one. It's probably cost us that goal there. But I don't think I've been looking at the goalkeeper this game. Look at him across the season. If across the season he continues to make consistent mistakes, then yeah. But after 3 games of him coming back from injury, I'm not going to turn around and go, right, Leno's terrible. Because he's not, because he was the second best player for us last season. So I'm not really going to turn on him that quick. There was a comment I wanted to highlight from Zamir. Zamir said, the key, Tom, is not this game. Rather, how do we respond in the next one? Sheffield are struggling big time. Haven't won. We need to put in a performance otherwise. And the thing about Sheffield United is that they haven't scored. They haven't scored all season, I believe. If my knowledge of the game is right, I don't think they've scored so far this season. And we need to go into that Sheffield United game, and we need to go with confidence, and we need to go with the attitude that whatever that game is and whatever we do in that game is turned around. And hopefully, with the addition of some new signings on top of that as well. Truth884 says Thiago would have been a good fit at Arsenal. Should we be going for Coutinho? Coutinho's going nowhere, mate. You watched the Barcelona game against Villarreal. Coutinho was brilliant. Koeman's not letting him leave. Barcelona aren't letting him leave. That ship has fully sailed. In terms of Thiago, would have been great. I think he would have been perfect. I think he's the best centre midfielder in the world, personally, is my personal opinion of Thiago. I think 20 million quid for him. I know he only had 1 year left on his deal, but that is unreal business from Liverpool. It turns them from the best team in the league to the best team in the league by a distance. A lot better than Manchester City. And they're going to, I'll be very surprised if they don't win the league again this year, because that Thiago signing is ridiculously good business. So good. Christopher Fung says, can we analyse the game? I feel like we have analysed the game. I feel like we have looked at the things. I think we've looked at the reasons why we lost. I think that we were completely overrun in the midfield. I think that we made key errors at key times. I think that if you look at the actual goals, I mean, the first one, we don't close down the cross at all. Sorry, that was the second goal. If you don't, the first goal, Tierney gets beat, and Leno kind of flaps at the shot that then obviously goes over to Mane, where there's no one covering Mane at all. It's just frustrating sometimes. I get they want to play offside and it's difficult, but there's no one covering him. The second goal, I was frustrated that Willian didn't keep the shape with the second goal. I'm obviously stopping the cross as always, but it's Liverpool. How are you going to stop the crosses? They have so many crosses throughout the game. And then looking at the third, I mean, the goal that we obviously scored right at the beginning was a really lucky. But again, it kind of showed there that Arsenal have that ability to break against these teams, is that we play a certain way and we give ourselves opportunities. And I think that's also key to think about. If we look at then the last goal is a poor header from David Luiz. It should be headering that far out. I think there was a lack of communication as well between the keeper and David Luiz. And I would have really liked to have seen Gabriel. I would have liked to have seen Gabriel in this game. And I thought about putting Luiz on the right with Gabriel in the middle. I'm not sure how Luiz would have coped maybe with Mane. Maybe he would have struggled. But I would have really kind of liked to see Gabriel in this game and really kind of challenged him and really got him to sort of step up in this game. I don't know what the thinking was there. Big ID says, he's dreadful, Tom. A man in atmospheric diving suit has better reflexes than Leno. He's not dreadful, mate. He was our second best player last season. He's not dreadful. He's a really good goalkeeper, and he makes a lot of good saves. And you're going to talk about his reflexes, then I'd suggest you go back and watch some of his highlight reels of last season, because the bloke has got reflexes. He had a bad game today. If you can't forgive someone for having a bad game, then you're going to have a tough time being a football fan, I can tell you that. Christopher Fung says, we needed Ceballos to help out open things on the right. Tactically, they played to shut down our build-up on the left, which led to forcing the ball back out to Holding and ultimately the mistakes. What Liverpool did really well, Chris, is that they ensured that our left-hand side was minimised as much as possible. Arsenal's attacks, if you have a look at it, the amount Bellerin got on the ball, the amount that El Neni was on the ball, the amount that Willian and Pepe got on the ball more than Aubameyang. They shut down our left-hand side, which if you look at our left, when it's Mainsley and when it's Bellerin and when it's Aubameyang, that is our best side of the pitch by far. And they shut it down. And that's ultimately where our biggest threat. We didn't get Aubameyang through until the 93rd minute. That's how long it took us to get a chance. And by that time, the game was gone. So that's just how it is at the end of the day. Jasmine says, Xhaka is our outlet to switch directions of our attack. Close down with utter speed. Klopp's team is the best in the world in this. So let's relax. Arguably our most difficult Premier League game of the season. Edward says, Tom, what did you make of Willian's performance? I thought it was mixed. I thought that he was at fault a bit for the second goal. I thought he could have been back in position to cover Robertson. I think he kind of left his man there. But ultimately, I actually thought that there was times where he battled on the ball. He won a fantastic goal kick for the team when he ran back to defend, and he was in his shape. But I don't think he had a massive impact on things. As I said, that when the ball was kind of forced onto that side, he had to rely a lot on Bellerin to overlap, and then that kind of left us a bit exposed. So I don't think he had a horrific game. I don't think he was terrible. I thought he was at fault maybe for the second goal. by not getting back in shape. But it wasn't really, I mean, Tekos, man, you sum it up perfectly, mate. It wasn't really a game that Willian is going to have that big, it's going to have sort of a big impact on it. So there you go. Let's go through some more comments and then we'll wrap things up. Jacob Zabo says, don't worry about losing to Liverpool and City. Let them go straight to the top. Be worried if we lose against Man United, Spurs, Everton, Wolves, Leicester, etc. That's where we get top four. And I think that's a good point, Jacob. You're going to see a lot of teams go to Liverpool this season and lose. I mean, they didn't lose a single game last season at Anfield. They didn't lose a single game. So you're going to see a lot of teams go to Anfield and lose because they're Liverpool and they're very good. As Jacob says, our team and our ultimate progress is going to be measured against Chelsea and Manchester United and Spurs away from home. Less so against Liverpool and to a lesser extent, of course, Manchester City. That is where it's going to be measured. In the progress that we've made, can we win a game against a top six side away from home in a league competition? And I'll tell you what, it's not going to be done playing like Leeds. You're not going to win a game at Chelsea and Man United or Spurs playing like Leeds. It's not going to happen. In fact, I might go as far to say that I'm not sure you will see Leeds go to one of those sides this season and get a win. If they do, hold my hands up. But at the end of the day, I don't think you get a win playing like Leeds in those places. Call me wrong. And when I say playing like Leeds, I mean playing like they played when they went to Anfield. If they suddenly change their tactics throughout the season, slightly different. But I don't think you do. So I don't think it's worth bringing that up as a case study. Zamir says, we need to break that duck, honestly. We really do. This chat today is off the rails, says Brian Robles. I'm kind of just ignoring the negativity, to be honest. There's no point talking about negativity after this game. It's pointless. Ian says, I said I was ignoring him. I'm going to bring one up now. Tom, how can you take positives from that poor game? How can this team compete for top four? Are you kidding? Could have played Saka. We scored with the attack from the right-hand side in the Community Shield. Okay, Ian, let's break down your comments. First of all, when you say we could have played Saka, the reason why we conceded against West Ham was because we played Saka on the left-hand side. He was caught out of position and Bowen was able to charge down our left-hand side, cross the ball. Kolasinac didn't block the cross, and then they scored. So if you want to talk about vulnerabilities, Saka at left wing or left midfield in this team is not going to improve us defensively over Mainsley. Mainsley that played against Manchester City and Chelsea and absolutely bossed us. Let's break down the next part of your thing. How can you take the positives from this game? Okay, Ian, let's take the positives from this game. Name me a last time that Arsenal remained in the game until towards the end of the game as much as we did today against Liverpool at Anfield, because we haven't. We've been beaten by half time against this side. So if you can't see the progress in that, I think you're going to struggle to see any positives in any game that Arsenal don't particularly have a win in. Let's break down anything else. How can this team compete for top four? I'll tell you how we compete to top four. We can win games away like we did against Fulham, where we tell with our possession, we play defensively really solidly, and we take our chances. We play against the West Ham side that really did batter us. I thought tactically, actually, Arteta got that game wrong. And yet we have players like Nketiah that can come off the bench, as well as Ceballos as well and Star, and create opportunities and score them. I think what you've seen from Arsenal so far this season is progress. And I think that if you're going to go into every game and think if we lose it, it suddenly means it's the end of the world, you're going to have a pretty tough time getting to the end of this season. So I really would consider looking at the positives before we go any further with this game. I really, really would. Matt Gray says, we lost to Liverpool away. Let's calm down, folks. I think that is definitely the way to sort of finish things there. I think if there's places that you want to go to an event and have a talk about negativities, you know where you can go. But I appreciate you coming onto this show to listen to me talking about the positives of this game. And if you have enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate if you could drop a like on the video. Please stay calm. This is not the end of the world. I believe that Arsenal have made progress in this game, that we've actually showed improvement in a game against a Liverpool side that are champions of the league and arguably maybe alongside Bayern Munich are the best team in Europe right now. So really, don't freak out. This is not the end of the world, and there is certainly progress being made. Let's enjoy the last week of the window. I think it's going to be exciting. I really genuinely do. If it isn't, then there's a lot to talk about. But I think it's going to be a positive end to the window, and we'll see how things go. So thank you so much for tuning in, people. And yeah, just keep smiling, just keep happy. I know it's tough because we've got to play them again in 4 days, but it's going to be a very, very different fixture. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, as it always is. Stay happy, stay positive, people. Stop moaning, stop being negative. Let's take the positives from this and move forward. And as always, up the Arsenal.